and he brought together every one of the people involved at the time in quantum mechanical work. In fact, if you go into the offices of most graduate students in physics, there is the obligatory poster of a picture of everyone who attended the 1927 conference, because it really is a little who is who. Okay? It really brought all of the monsters together. Tremendous conference, really neat poster. Okay? Only one woman, unfortunately. If you had asked the people at that conference, okay, you're here asking questions about the electron and the nature of reality, and do you exist when I'm not looking at you? Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, this was what we discussed. If you had asked them, does this have anything to do with practicality? They would have been offended by that question. And yet, I will argue, I mean, none of them thought, well, I'm just asking questions about the electron. I'm asking questions about, is the electron a wave or a particle, the debate that occur. However, subsequently we know, if you don't have quantum mechanics, a profound understanding of electron, you don't have this. Just like without a profound understanding of fluid dynamics, I mean really, really profound, you cannot build something like a Boeing 747 that reliably gets you where it's supposed to get you, or a Boeing 777 that will actually land where it's supposed to land as long as the pilots are paying attention. Okay? I mean that just sounds obvious, but so we have an example throughout the history of science where very abstract work, some, does provide the basis for technical engineering know-how, which is where what is called the rubber meets the road. What you're asking me is, do I know that this urban scaling work will be it's not going to be like quantum mechanics, but do I believe 50 years from now people are going to look back and say, you know, those people doing work in cities, and they came together, look at this poster of them. Wow, that work really influenced policymaking. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that certainly urban policymaking in the United States is greatly influenced by urban economics that was developed circa 1970s. So whatever urban economics thought made cities kick in the 70s is influencing policy today. But let me give you a very specific question that I do think has policy implications that connects to this theoretical work, but has also to do imminently with measurement, which is the following, which maybe is a way to connect these various worlds that you're referring to, which is a question of, does distance still matter? Okay? Ever since the age of the internet, people have been arguing, look, with the internet, you're going to have telecommuting, people are going to stay at home, work in their underwear, which for many people is the height of happiness, and distance will no longer matter as much, physical distance. Okay, that's an interesting question. That will also have tremendous policy implications, because a lot of investment decisions at the state level, city levels, are still having to do with the sort of infrastructure supposed to bring people together. And so what does it matter? What does it matter whether downtown Chicago is dense or not dense? It doesn't matter. Distance does not matter. So the question is, does distance matter? Now, what do you mean by that? Does it mean, well, the people who are collaborating in patenting, they are no longer doing it in the same floor, the same building, the same city, the same state? Or are they? The people who are engaged in wealth creation. So, can we get at this? Can we capture that? And there's been lots of work recently utilizing not only the standard types of data, let's say patenting. Patenting is a great source of data. This is very rich data. Okay, so you can pretty much answer the question, the people who are inventing stuff, does distance matter? Oh yes. We know that when it comes to patenting, the people who are doing the really cool patents are in the same floor. Not just in the same city, the same institution, the same building. They're in the same floor. But that's standard data, meaning that some of the data that she was referring to about Facebook interactions, cell phones, are telling us that when people choose to interact with other people, they seem to still do it with people in remarkably close geographic proximity. believe that space still matters because of this line of evidence. Well, you're going to design very different policies. Then you're going to worry about why should we make these cities or not? Should we be like Portland? Take the city where I live, Phoenix, which there are two things you can say about Phoenix. One, it's miserably hot in the summer, okay? I was really struck that when I landed yesterday in the airport, it was 40 degrees cooler than when I left Phoenix. So why are we living in Phoenix? Okay, well, there are reasons for that. So it's hot. It's also not a dense city. And there's a lot of people who are very bothered by that. And we have to do things to make it dense. And there are policy instruments that could be done. Would you ask, why do you want to make it dense? Other than, well, an aesthetic judgment. Well, because we believe density matters. Why do you believe density still matters? I thought it was the end of distance. So I will argue there are ways in which debate about agglomeration, people's interaction, how people interact, can find its way to policy discussions today, decisions that are being made, zoning laws, for example, and are raising empirical challenges that I most decidedly agree will not be settled by the standard means we have of getting data. Meaning you're an academic, you wait for the census bureau to do a census every 10 years, voila, you know it. No, that will not suffice. The question is, as Google does its thing, as Facebook does its thing, and they do their thing for their own purposes, as companies build buildings, and you generate your own data for your own purposes, to answer your own questions, do you have any reason, any motive, any gain in sharing that data with us, academics, to answer questions like this, that we're telling you, this might interest you at some point in the future, but hey, it's just an interesting question. And the answer might be, maybe not. Look, let's think of a very, very straightforward question. This is about as straightforward a question as you can get. You probably agree. What's the energy consumption of cities in the United States? They consume energy, electricity, stuff goes in cars. Now, why does that question matter? Well, because as we think about climate change and blah, 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 some people argue cities, by their nature, especially large cities, are more energy efficient. So, some will argue one thing you can do about adapting to climate change is remove any barriers to cities getting larger. Okay, that's an argument. Let's look at the data. It is surprisingly difficult to get good data on energy consumption at cities. Now, I know where to get it. In the case of Phoenix, there are only two utilities that provide electricity for the whole thing metropolitan area: APS and SRP. They're nice people, they do their job, they give us electricity. We've asked them, can you share your data with us? And the attitude is, no. I said, please, please, it'll be really cool work. I'll thank you in the paper. No. I said, please, give me your data. Why would you give me your data, damn it? I don't understand. Well, so, we cannot answer the question, is Phoenix your archetypal of a sprawling city, okay? Is it actually less energy efficient than, let's say, Portland? Well, the answer is we don't know because we have not measured energy use. So, okay, I use this as an example not to put down SRP and NPS. I think it's a genuine question. Why should they give us their data? Someone at APS will have to go sit down with me, go into their data bank, and say, oh my goodness, I don't deal with Excel. Can you do it in SAS? I don't know about SAS. Well, I'll teach you SAS. And then, no, I'm not in the, that's not their business. I'm really not critical about it. No, I'm not criticizing them. I'm chiding them. But I understand that at the end of the day, that's not their job. So the same thing with Google, Facebook. He said, what can we tell them? Say, look, I'm asking you for your data. It's going to help me achieve academic glory. It's going to help me get I will get into science, I will get tenure, I will name my firstborn after Google, I'll do all that. What more do you want? You know, but I'm not saying yet anything like, what are you going to gain? Now, perhaps another generation of scholars like yourselves who are more in tune going across that boundary than many of us are, will find ways to say, okay, can we actually get this partnership? But I entirely agree that they will have this challenge as we talk about big urban data. How much of that data are researchers going to be able to get? How much of that data can be brought into the public domain? I mean, because to tell you, to be fair about it, that is one of the issues, let's say, with the Phoenix utility companies. Okay, I give you the data, but this is data from our clients. We have to be very careful. Okay, you can use it in our office, but say, no, but wait, if I'm going to use this data and get my paper into science, I have to make it available. Oh, well, so I don't think that's a trivial challenge. And I don't know if there's enough being thought about how to make that bridge. So I don't know. But it's not a trivial challenge.
This is a more technical question, but as cities grow, they sometimes swallow towns, big towns of them. And when they behave, I'm going to put an example of Mexico City, the way some parts of it behave are very local. They're not, you don't get as many interactions as you think you get when you incorporate into a city. How do you take that into account when you say that larger cities have a greater innovation output that is not just linear, that is super linear?
If I understand your question correctly, it's a good one. And by the way, I'm not saying this as a trick. I think this is a very good question. I'm not sure we're correcting for that very well so far. Now, one thing you can do, which becomes problematic, is when you decide what are your spatial boundaries. You have to make a decision. Okay? I'm going to take this data and assign it to Phoenix, Chicago, and Boston. Okay, what do you mean by Phoenix, Chicago, and Boston? The overwhelming majority of the work done in urban economics in the United States, at least since the 1990s, the preferred unit of analysis has been the metropolitan statistical area. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why we like MSA so much. MSAs. That's because we believe, cities have political boundaries, they're sort of artificial. So MSAs, I'm going to say technically, it's a unified labor market. So we believe it's more of an economic entity. The boundaries of MSAs are much more stable over time. However, but here's another example of the data challenges. Precisely because so much of our work has been in MSAs. I mean, if you look at the hundreds of papers published on urban economic growth in the past 25 years, the overwhelming majority of papers have been about these metropolitan system in the United States. Not only because it's difficult to get data about cities outside the United States, in many other places that isn't the equivalent system of MSAs. Let's take an example of an urban system that you think that will be very similar to that of North America, the European Union. Well, it turns out that there is no strict equivalent of MSAs that's used in France or Germany. So, if there's one message I want to leave you here, other than biological scaling is really awesome, is that the tremendously narrow range, importantly, of this tremendous explosion of interest in urban economics that has occurred in the United States over the past 20 years now. We've done a lot of work. When I began as a student in economics, urban economics, it was a dead field for decades. It was just, you did not go into it. And then several things happened, which is itself a talk, and that became the sexy thing to do. And we've done a lot of work. It's almost exclusively based on the North American urban system. Exclusively based on the MSA definition of an urban area. And I have to acknowledge that, we don't know. If you ask me, well, is it the same for the Mexican urban system? Well, I might have theoretical reasons to believe so, but I don't know. But I can say it's really cool. Yes.
So,
By the way, I don't know until when. I don't have a watch, so you keep asking, we'll keep talking. But at some point, if someone says, okay, you need to go to the bathroom, you have to go back to your families, fine, just let me know. You already left your families behind for the summer. Very happy, very good. Oh,
actually, since we're 45 minutes over, but there is a lot of interesting discussion, still to have. And how long are you around until?
5:30, just because I have to get back to the airport.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm here.
anybody who wants to stick around, please.